want to start this morning by telling you a story about one of the great innovators that I know. He's remarkable for his inquisitiveness, for his sense of play, for his ability to bring things from different places and mash them together and create something new. I think you probably know people like him. I don't know all the people that you know that might be like this, but when I tell you a bit more about who he is, I think you'll realise that you do know people like him. He's a great inspiration to me. His name is Alfred Marsh. Now, Alfred, or Alfie as people like to call him, operates in very constrained circumstances. He doesn't have many resources. He's not at liberty to travel the world like many of us are. He's not really even at liberty to travel Australia. But he approaches life with a very open mind, and he watches and he listens and he sees and he brings all that together in wonderful ways. Now, Alfie is 3 years old and he's my grandson. Who's got a grandson? Who's got a son or a daughter? Who knows someone who's 3 years old? I think I've probably covered everybody by now. So lots of us know someone who's 3 years old, or we remember somebody who's 3 years old. Aren't 3-year-olds wonderful? This is the audience participation bit. No, Paul says no. Maybe he's got one. Have you got a 3-year-old, Paul?
She was up about 6 times last night.
Isn't she wonderful sometimes? Okay. I think 3-year-olds are wonderful, and of course I think my grandson Alfie is wonderful. He really is an inspiration to me. So I go to Alfie's place and he likes to take me out into the backyard. And in the backyard he has a sandpit. And the sandpit is where it all comes together for Alfie. And I have to just participate. Alfie tells me what he needs me to do. The sandpit is such a beautiful place to play, and all of his ideas and his energy and the way that he's exploring the world and thinking about what happens and things people said or things he saw people do or something he saw on TV or read in a book or something his friends did, it all comes together and gets mashed in and mixed up and turned into ideas in that sandpit. I don't think it's a coincidence that businesses like to use the term sandpit. Sandpit is a magical place for Alfie. It's a great inspiration to me to see his imagination at work. So things can be not what they seem. A leaf can be anything in the sandpit. A leaf can be something to eat. A leaf can be an object of furniture. A leaf can be any kind of part in the little role play or game that he's playing. You know, if you think about Alfie, he goes to preschool. If you went to Alfie's preschool and stood up in front of the preschool and said to the preschool kids, or asked them a question like this, what would be the answer? Who can sing? How many of them would put their hand up? They all would put their hand up. Who can dance? They all would put their hand up. Who can draw? Who can paint? Who can act? They all would put their hand up. If I said to you, I won't actually ask you to do this now, you know, who can sing? Who can dance? Who can draw? Who can paint? Some of you might. Many of you wouldn't. Some of you might feel a bit nervous or intimidated. I would. I wouldn't like it if you were up here and I was there and you asked me whether I could sing and draw or dance or paint. What happened there? You know, what happened between the 3-year-old and the 53-year-old? The world got us down a bit, didn't it? It's wonderful to watch the inspiring creativity and open-mindedness and inquisitiveness of children. And when I think about innovation at work, and I think about it from the context of my role at the Commonwealth Bank, this is a very relevant idea to me because I think people have a lot of energy and ability and creativity that they can express at work. And a big part of what we try to do at ComBank is to give people ways to express that in that playfulness, that childlike playfulness and creativity and the ability to take things from what you see around you and apply them to the situation that you're in. Of course, the situation that you're in at work is not a sandpit in the backyard, and we have a few constraints and objectives that we do have to consider. So while you're at liberty to do anything you want in a sandpit, that's not the case at work. In our case at the Commonwealth Bank, we're a bit older than Alfred. We're about 33 times as old as Alfred. We celebrated our centenary just a year or so ago. But I think there are ways that we can bring in some of that energy and creativity and apply it to the things that we do and put it into a useful commercial context. I just want to tell you a couple of principles that we try to follow as we do that, and then I've got some practices about how we actually put that into play, and then a couple of examples. So the first principle is to anchor everything that you do in your organisational goals and strategy. This is the Commonwealth Bank's vision statement, which is to excel at securing and enhancing the financial well-being of people, businesses and communities. So it's not like the sandpit at work in that you can't play anything you want at work. You have to play or do things and create and innovate that serves the objectives of the organisation. I think it's a very important point to remind ourselves of, so somehow bring all that energy through and then direct it. And this is one of the two principles about directing that energy. The second one is about our customers. Now, innovation, obvious point, what does it mean? It means new and it means better. New is not enough. New is interesting, but ultimately new is not enough. Better. It needs to be better. So whatever you want to do, whether it's to change a process, change the way you conduct things, change the product, change the way the organisation operates, it needs to be both new and better. Who ultimately needs to determine whether it's better? Did someone say customers? I think a few of you said customers. Obvious point, but it's very important to remind ourselves of that as we go into work and think about the to-do list we've got or the things that we want to get around to that we haven't quite reached yet, and think about, can I innovate in that? The ultimate person who will decide the value of that innovation is, of course, your customer. So being customer-centric, I know it's a buzzword at the moment, but I think it's a highly important principle about how we go about innovating at work. To be customer-centric, you've got to work on how you anchor yourselves in the view of the customer. I'll just give you an example of how we do that at the bank. One of the things that we do in my division is we run a team called Transaction Banking Solutions. They go and work with corporate clients to show them how they can use all the payment and online banking type tools that we've got to improve the way they manage cash. So their objective is not to consume banking services. You know, companies don't exist in order to buy banking services. They exist in order to fulfill their strategic objectives, obviously. So what we have to do is remind ourselves of that. They don't want to talk to us because they love our banking services. They want to talk to us because they've got an objective in mind. So our challenge is to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer and think about their objectives. What we do with the people that work in that team is we send them to the client. We don't just send them for a meeting for an hour. At times we'll send them for a week or several weeks to sit with the client and understand the wider context in which the banking service plays a part. So to understand the entire flow from ordering things, manufacturing things, distributing things, paying suppliers, paying staff, and how the information that we provide that's associated with the payment and the way the payment works can work within that context. That's about being customer-centric. So it's to take yourself out of your own organisation, your own shoes, your own perspective, and go to visit the customer and to look at the things that you're doing or might do from the point of view of the customer. So they were the two principles. Now I said I wanted to talk to you about 4 practices. Here they are. The first one is that opportunities are everywhere. Now, one of the terms you might have heard about in relation to innovation is that innovation can be both incremental and transformative. This is a really encouraging thing to me, because sometimes when we think about innovation, we think about the big sexy things. You think about Google, I think Google was mentioned this morning, or you think about Apple, and they're a long way away from the scope of what many of us have to deal with day to day. It's great if you can find those great big game-changing, world-beating innovations. So I think we need to be open to that, but we shouldn't labour ourselves with the idea that that's all that innovation is. Innovation can be everywhere. Just as Alfred finds innovation every single day in everything that he does, we can think about that. So we try to encourage our staff to think that everybody can innovate. It's not someone else's job, it's everybody's job to approach everything that they do, that when they have a meeting with each other, they can be innovative in the way that they have that meeting. When they write an email to each other, they can be innovative in the way that they write the email. When they go to see a client, they can be innovative in the way they talk to the client. So it works at an operational level or an incremental level as well as a transformative level. Now, all of this comes out of the right culture. So without the right culture, all of this is just hot air. So culture to us is about mindsets and it's about capabilities. So we take initiatives to try to help our people to be more innovative. That is our objective, to be more innovative. If we can be more innovative and be open to the idea that opportunities are everywhere, then innovation will come. So some of the things that we do in terms of building the right culture are we run training programs with Amantha Imber's help. We've run training programs for our teams in creative thinking skills, and those are just very practical skills that you can use really day in, day out as you just go about the things that you're already doing. The third principle is to foster the best ideas. So we do actively seek ideas. We run an online tool called the Innovation Academy. It gathers ideas. People can put ideas in, they can comment on others' ideas, they can vote for ideas. We run a process around that to filter out the more popular ideas and put them into a second stage of evaluation. We support the Innovation Academy in a couple of ways. Every quarter, we choose one of the ideas that's been more popular, and we have a quarterly innovation award, and we give that idea seed funding, and we establish what we call a hit squad to take that idea from being an idea through a sort of tested concept that we can then ideally implement. Now, a hit squad doesn't mean what you think it might mean. It stands for high intensity team. And hit squad is composed partly of volunteers and partly of some people that work in the relevant area. So if it's an idea to do with, let's say, commercial loans, then we'll get some commercial loans people in there. But we'll also get some people who aren't from commercial loans to join that hit squad deliberately, because we want to bring some different thinking and a different point of view to the development of that idea. Also, the fact that they're volunteers is important to us. We want people to work on ideas that they're energised by. And the final one is about leadership. Obviously critical. Leaders need to be visible. They need to be seen supporting these ideas. They need to be seen walking the walk and talking the talk. One of the very big themes that we have for our leaders is speaking up. So we do encourage all of our leaders to be active in speaking up. So things like Friday afternoon sessions that one of the other speakers mentioned before, leaders have to demonstrate that, particularly in a big organisation. We've got over 50,000 staff. It's very important that all the people in our organisation feel it's an open organisation, that everyone who has ideas can bring them out and talk about them. And so speaking up, we need to show that ourselves as leaders, and we need to encourage it in the staff that work in our teams. And the final part of what I wanted to do this morning with you is to show you a couple of examples. So this diagram is a little summary of some of the things that we've done. You probably can't read the words. It doesn't matter. They're yellow and grey, and there's lots of words there about products that we've launched. I'm just going to tell you about two. This one is everyday settlement. So this one's a year or two ago now. Now, if you work in a retail environment or run some kind of business that takes card-based payments, you'd probably be familiar with the challenge that the customers right across Australia felt, which was you could take a payment on, say, a Friday night, not get the benefit of that until after the weekend was over. And that was the way that the banking systems work, because they're all batch-based and they're all designed around the idea that banks only had to work Monday to Friday and not do anything on Saturdays and Sundays, or on public holidays. Now, we had invested a lot of money in a new banking platform, which is real-time. Massive investment, over $1 billion. Took us a number of years, but that gave us a capability that we wanted to leverage and change things for the better. So we thought, well, what could we do with these payments? So if you're in a shop and you take a payment on Saturday morning, you don't want to wait until Tuesday to see that in your bank account. We decided, since we had the ability with our real-time banking platform, we could just step out and change that. So we just started putting the money into people's accounts straight away. It wasn't actually, having built that real-time banking platform, the decision to make the payments go into people's accounts real-time wasn't itself a big technical leap. It was more a matter of ourselves taking a risk on the money coming through from the other banks. We felt basically all right about that, so I can reassure you about our trust in the other banks. But also, that was going to cost us interest. So, to pay the interest 2 days earlier than we might otherwise have been paying it was an immediate sort of cost on the Commonwealth Bank. So we had to take a step that said, we just think this is going to be a better thing to do from the customer's point of view. And essentially, the customers will like us better and value banking with us more because we're treating them better. That was the innovation there. It was an innovation of thinking more than a technical innovation. And the second one, and this is the one that I'm going to conclude on, is our Pi and Albert ecosystem. Now, you may not have heard of this one. This one is not fully on the market yet. Part of it has been launched and part of it is going to be on the market from the end of this year. Now, this one, again, is about the in-store environment. Today, and ever since the beginning of plastic cards, if you went to an in-store environment and you wanted to pay, there were often several devices involved. There'd be a cash register, there'd be a separate little terminal, usually not particularly attractive thing that you'd swipe your card through or now touch it against, and there might be other things that the retailer would have. What we've created in Pi is an ecosystem that'll bring a tablet-like device, which is called Albert, the one up on the screen here, that brings together marketing information, any other type of content that the business would like to show to their customers, and payment all in one secure wireless and Bluetooth-based device. So you can think about things that, for example, fuel retail outlets do with, where they have the buy one and get another one free, or buy one and get another one for 50 cents, or loyalty programs, or you can think about cataloguing and merchandising and showing customers, I have those shirts, there's not one in this store that's in that colour, but I can show you here, it looks like that. So we've created a platform that can enrich the entire experience of interacting with the client, and then the payment just comes in at the end of it. It's like the final bit that concludes that conversation you're having with the client. It's a bit like the example I told you before about how we like to see our payments in the wider scheme of what the client is trying to achieve. So more news about that from the end of this year. That's all what I wanted to say to you. Story about Alfred and all the inspiration we can get from kids. A couple of principles about strategy and being customer focused, and then the 4 practices I just showed you. Thanks very much.